Hey everybody, how we doing tonight? Good to see y'all. First things first, audio check. Let me know if you can hear me all right. Let me adjust my screen here just a little bit. There we go. Well, welcome everybody. I see Curtis in the chat room. Hey Curtis, how you doing tonight? Got a few other viewers there, so let's go ahead and say hey in the chat. Like to know who's watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you're viewing this not live and you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Bigfoot Outlaw channel has all different kinds of shows for all different kinds of tastes. So feel free to join and see what we offer. Welcome to everybody that's going to be listening to us later. We are a global audience. We have people all across the world that tune in to us. And I want y'all to know that I appreciate each and every one of you. You have to forgive me, guys. I'm a little tired tonight. For some reason, I've been extra tired this week. Excuse me. As you can see. So my presentation isn't as polished as I would like it to be, but I think it will still suffice. I think we'll still have a good time with it. If I can get people in the audience to, talk about this a little bit, this will be a much more fun discussion if it's not just me up here rattling away. So if you're joining us, go ahead and give a howdy in the chat room. We'll give it another minute here or so. Darn commercials. Yeah, any commercials are from YouTube. We don't put any in there ourselves. I personally can't stand the commercials, so I put up for YouTube Prime or Premium. So I don't have any commercials in my podcast and stuff. Because it annoys me too, Curtis. I get you, buddy. Absolutely. So just so you guys know, the commercials are not something that we put in there. That's all YouTube. So tonight, we are going to be talking about zombies. Kind of excited. It's kind of like last week where I thought it would be kind of just a fluff topic. It was a viewer request. Somebody had asked about it a little bit. So I'm like, yeah, sure. We'll do a quick zombie show, something light and easy. Everybody knows all about zombies. But then when I got into it, there was, some new information I didn't know. So I always appreciate it when that happens. So, if you have a suggestion, no matter how mundane you think it is, go ahead and send it to me. You can see my email there at the bottom. And we'll look into it. I got a few more suggestions holding on the side. And I've got a few guests lined up. We're trying to get lined up here so we can have a pretty good month of guests coming on too. So you don't have to worry about just me being here. All right, so let's get into it tonight. Zombies. Even though Curtis is my only guy chatting right now, I appreciate it, Curtis. I'm sure others will join in. There we go. Twisted. Hey, Twisted. I saw you on Althea's show. I was behind the scenes running everything there. Good to have you here. All right, so we're talking zombies. And so the idea basically is, where did it come from? Where did this idea of zombies start? And why has it progressed the way that it has? It's kind of the idea here. By now, we're all familiar with the groaning, grumbling, shuffling sounds that have come to be associated with zombies. Pulp culture is full of the walking menaces. Movies, television series, comedies, video games, books, and even kids' stories now have zombies in them. And they all contain references to the undead ambulatory brain suckers. But where does the idea come from? Do people actually believe in zombies? Could they have, or do they now even exist? So that's kind of what we're going to delve into tonight. The answer is It depends on what you think a zombie is, right? So, what is a zombie to you? I'm asking the audience here, all my people that are live, go ahead and what is a zombie? Put it in the chat room. What do you think a zombie is? For you, what characteristics defines zombie? That's going to be what we're looking to. So I'll be looking for those comments to pop up so we can throw them in there. Audience participation required. I had to throw that slide in there. There we go. Captain Birdseye, first one up. A flesh-eating corpse brought back to life by either a voodoo or a virus. Thank you, Captain Birdseye. A Little Twisted just said, never really studied zombies. Yeah, neither have I. But I thought it was a fun one. It was a good show. Curtis just says The Walking Dead. Nada says they always walk stiff-legged. Little Twisted, a genetically changed human. Okay. All right, so let's dig into it, what zombies were, and then kind of dig into where this folklore, where this legend kind of started. So first we got to pull up a definition, right? Merriam-Webster says a zombie is a willless, and speechless human, as in voodoo belief and in fictional stories, held to have died and been supernaturally reanimated. Or it's also a reference to the supernatural power that, according to voodoo belief, may enter into and reanimate a body. So there's a fun picture of the zombies, undead. Kind of the willless, shuffling, moaning, groaning, just kind of walking around meaningless. The second definition from Merriam-Webster is a person held to resemble the so-called walking dead, especially like an automaton, or a person markedly strange in appearance or behavior. So we've all seen these guys, especially at work. They're just walking zombies. And thirdly, a mixed drink made of several kinds of rum, liquor, and fruit juice. So thank you, Merriam-Webster, to throw that one in there. And just in case you wanted to know, there is a zombie cocktail with the recipe. Figured I would throw that one in there just for kicks. Twisted, that's an interesting definition. Yeah, I found it kind of lacking, though, as far as definitions go. Little Twisted, never drank that. Neither have I, but I'm willing to try it. So, like I said, I found that definition a little lacking, so I went to Britannica. Check that one out. It said a zombie is a fictional character, undead creature frequently featured in works of horror fiction and film. The modern fictional zombie was largely developed by the works of the American filmmaker George A. Romero. So if you're a horror zombie fan with the movies, you'll know all about George Romero. So the Britannica doesn't even consider the history. They're just saying it's a fictional horror movie trope. Captain Birdseye, R.I.P. Romero. Yep. One of the greats. Okay, so where does this idea of a zombie come from? Is this straight up Hollywood fiction? Did this just happen to pop up and it just became huge? Or was there a history to this? You guys know one of the things I love looking into is the backstory. Is there a history to this? Is there an ancient line that we can follow up to modern times that talk about zombies, zombie-like creatures, things that we could be considered as zombies? So that's what I started digging into. And I found on his website, historicmysteries.com, the history of zombies. So I kind of went through and just got a lot of good paragraphs. Like I said, it's not as polished as I usually try and do, bullet points and make it my own and reword it, everything. So I'm going to try and make sure I cite everything here. But the history of zombies may go back all the way to the Stone Age. Some scholars believe that the fear of reanimated corpses may have led to the evolution of gravestones. Originally, people would place cairns or piles of rocks over a freshly buried body to make sure it could not dig its way out. I think this might be speculation. I was always under the impression it was to keep scavengers from digging their way in as a way to kind of leave the dead in peace. But they're saying no, it's the opposite. The whole idea was to keep them there, not letting them rise from the dead. In the article, The Surprising History Behind Gravestones, Micah Matlack explains that the usage of gravestones was to keep the dead in their graves. In the Stone Age, when humans were still nomadic in nature, the dead would be buried and a great stone or boulder rolled over atop the grave. The stones were called gravestones, and their purpose was to prevent the deceased from rising after death, a fear still prevalent in modern society. Yeah, Twisted. That is interesting. Like I said, that's different than what I would have thought, logically speaking. And this is all still from Historic Mysteries. In Syria, archaeologists found skulls from a site that they dated at 10,000 years old. Someone had bashed the skulls in and completely removed them from the rest of their bodies. Apparently, this ritual was a tradition for some time in Europe and Near Eastern region, as archaeologists have found other sites just like this. Although scholars have posed many viable theories, Juan Jose Ibanez from the Spanish National Research Council in Barcelona says that the find may suggest that the Stone Age cultures believed dead young men were a threat to the world of the living. Jennifer McDaniels, hello from Harlan. Hey, Jen. Nice of you to join us. Captain Birdseye. Weren't vampires inspired by the same thing, especially rigor mortis, which people back then thought was the corpse breathing? Yeah, very similar. Very similar. In fact, and in some of these, we'll see that vampires and zombies were kind of, in their mind, the same thing. So what we're looking at is the idea of zombie being coming back from the dead. And obviously vampires kind of have the same thing. So there is some blurring of the lines there in the old beliefs. Little Twisted says, hey, Jen, good to see you. Just taking a break from what she's been working on all day to come join us. I appreciate that, Jen. Thank you. In the 1980s, archaeologists found graves in a necropolis. Wow, I told you guys I was tired. Necropolis in Sicily, which was colonized by the Greeks around 800 BC. Some of the tombs contained bodies pinned down with rocks and other heavy objects. Experts speculate that those particular sites may have belonged to people whom the Greeks thought were capable of rising from their graves. To prevent a revenant, which was kind of an old term for zombie before the word zombie was put in use, to prevent a revenant from getting out, the ancient Greeks would either incinerate, dismember, or restrain the individual in its grave. So we have Syria. Well, first we have, the Stone Age cultures before there was, a definition of boundaries. In Syria, they found evidence of it. In Greek, Sicily, in Greek necropolis, they found evidence of it. Here's a picture of some of those disarticulated skeletons and skulls and stuff. Dr. Carrie L. Solowski Weaver, archaeologist and researcher of the necropolis in Sicily, explains, in the ancient world, revenants were feared because it is believed that they leave their graves at night for the explicit purpose of harming the individuals. Revenants could be trapped in their graves by being tied, staked, flipped onto their stomachs, buried exceptionally deep, or pinned with rocks or other heavy objects. A little twisted asks, what kind of individuals would make them want to do that? I'm not sure I'm comprehending the meaning of your question, Twisted. Are you asking, like, with the individual dying, like, were they a particular type of person where they would have feared they were coming back from the dead? Is that kind of what you're getting into? Like, was there a criminal, murderer, something like that? Clarify your question for me, and I will definitely answer as best as I can. And so here is, again, from the same article area where they were pinning down parts of the skeleton. That's just a drawing. This is, if you're asking that question, Twisted, this is what their answer to that one is. The ancient Greeks believed that certain people were especially likely to return as revenants or zombies. Those people included suicides, murder victims, and illegitimate children. Additionally, babies born on an unlucky day or with congenital defects, and people who had died from drowning, plague, or a curse could rise again. So that's according to Greek. So I guess the real answer is it depends on your history, your philosophy, where you're from, what your culture dictated. But this was the Greek list of how you could become a zombie or basically or a revenant. Since the individual initial find in the 1980s, archaeologists have found more revenant graves, including some in Cyprus, and that were buried between 4500 and 380 BC and were pinned down by millstones. So basically, it was the idea of how can we trap them so they physically cannot come back up. So not ghosts, not spirit, but their physical bodies. And a bunch of other cultures. Norse mythology describes the Draugr, which I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation. I apologize. Which is a revenant or undead creature. The word means again walker. In China, the Jiangxi, which is Chinese for a stiff corpse, combines the attributes of the zombie and the vampire. In Romania, we have the Strigoi. Is a Romanian zombie that also includes many traits of the vampire. They drink blood and can transform into animals. Now, I'm familiar with Strigoi, and I have never really referred to him as a zombie. It's always been vampiric in nature. But if we're looking at the idea that it was a human that was dead and then came back to life and terrorized people, then the Strigoi would, fall into that category. All right, so that's the history, the background, the multicultural. So again, it was a worldwide phenomenon from ancient days. People believed under certain circumstances, certain people could come back from the dead, but not just resurrected, but actually come back as a zombie, a revenant, and cause harm and terrorize the living. So now we're going to look into probably what you know of, or at least have heard a little bit about, as far as modern day zombies and where the current science is behind the idea of zombies. All right. The history of zombies in Haiti has an African origin. However, the West African zombie did not have a body. It was formless. In some South African countries, they believed in physical zombies with bodies. In those countries, children or witches could turn someone into a zombie. A witch could kill a person and then reanimate the body to use for her own personal needs. And actually, the word zombie is an African word. It was originally spelled without the E at the end of it, so zombie. And it just kind of got picked up as the word for the revenant, as these undead that were coming back. Specifically because modern day, the idea of zombies came from the African culture into the slave trade over to Haiti, and followed kind of the voodoo religion around. Voodoo is a religion based in West Africa and practiced throughout Haiti and the Caribbean, Brazil, the American South, and other places with a strong African heritage. Many people who follow the voodoo religion today believe zombies are a myth, but some believe zombies are people revived by a voodoo practitioner known as a bokor. So even people today that follow the voodoo religion say that it's just a myth. It's just one of their stories. And they just said children had that power. Never heard that before. Yeah, they didn't get into it. Why children in Africa could turn people into zombies. I don't know where that came from. I couldn't find any information on that, but I did note that. I thought that was interesting. I know a lot of parents with young kids that act like zombies because they're just exhausted from dealing with them, but I don't think that's quite what they're talking about there. Ideas about zombies and the practice of voodoo migrated throughout the world with the slave trade. And just one example, the French ruled Haiti from 1625 to 1804. And they established sugar plantations. Thus, the imported slaves from Africa to operate the plantations, and those slaves brought their folklore beliefs with them. And likewise, similar stories occurred in America. So not only did we collectively, the slave trade over, we brought their culture and religion practices with them. And they kind of introduced other tribes, other ideas, other cultures, and meshed into what we have nowadays. Bokors have a tradition of using herbs, shells, fish, animal parts, bones, and other objects to create concoctions, including zombie powders, which contain tetrodotoxin, which is a deadly neurotoxin found in pufferfish and some other marine species. So if you've ever seen a documentary or show on zombies, this is what you've heard. There's a poison in pufferfish that can kill you, or it doesn't actually kill you. It kind of kills you. And then you go into a coma, but then you wake up again. It's kind of what they're talking about. There was even a Simpsons episode about it. So that is a well-known scientific thing. That is legit. Used carefully at sublethal doses, the tetrodotoxin combination may cause zombie-like symptoms such as difficulty walking, mental confusion, and respiratory problems. The thing with that is, though, they would have to continually be dosed. High doses of tetrodotoxin can lead to paralysis and coma. This could cause someone to appear dead and be buried alive, and then later revived. Captain Birdseye 4, I now want a zombie apocalypse that starts because of a pufferfish, right? Let's turn that into a movie. Get the screenplay going, bud. See what we can do. And this is legit stuff. A 1997 article in a British medical journal, The Lancet, described 3 verifiable accounts of zombies. In one case, a Haitian woman who appeared to be dead was buried in a family tomb, only to reappear 3 years later. An investigation revealed that her tomb was filled with stones, and her parents agreed to admit her to a local hospital. So, I mean, straight up, this lady appeared to be dead, and they buried her. And 3 years later, she shows back up again. And that's not the only case. This is the one that I'm more familiar with. In another well-documented case, a Haitian man named Clairvius entered a local hospital with severe respiratory problems in 1962. He slipped into a coma. He was declared dead and was buried shortly after. But 18 years later, a man walked up to Angelina Narcisse in a village marketplace, insisting she was his sister. Doctors, townspeople, and family members all identified him as Clairvius Narcisse, who claimed that he had been buried alive and then dug up and put to work on a distant sugar plantation. Okay, so here's the idea. Here's what they think is happening. Somebody is paying this Bokor, or a Bokor, not necessarily a single individual, but pays a Bokor to zombify an enemy. And then basically, once that person is zombified, he's sold into the slave trade. This guy here was put on a plantation. His memory was wiped due to whatever else the Bokor did. And he worked for 18 years on this plantation until, basically some of his memory returned. So that is not an uncommon theme where they're given this concoction, this zombie powder or some other concoction, and it's making them go into a coma state. And then later on, they get dug up and put into captivity. And even while they're in captivity, they don't really know what's going on. I think there would probably have to be fed a continual, regimen of this stuff, but they don't talk about that. So actual evidences of what scientifically we would call a zombie. So that's where back to the beginning, I said it depends on what you believe a zombie is, whether they're real or not. Are people actually dying, staying dead, and then magically being brought back to life? There's no evidence of that whatsoever. But this case, this is modern day zombieism. This is what they talk about within the Voodoo religion. Interestingly, Haitians find the Bokor far more frightening than the zombie, for the zombie is completely at the Bokor's mercy and has to obey them. Some Bokors are benevolent and use the zombie to help them perform healing magic. An evil Bokor, however, might murder someone in order to bind them as a zombie, and Haitian finds the prospect of such servitude terrifying. A little twisted. Is that why we embalm now? I don't know the answer to that one, if that's directly related. Embalming kind of was going on with the Egyptians a long time ago, so I think the idea of embalming was more preserving the body for the afterlife. I think that'd be kind of a different mindset there. Good question, though, Twisted. All right, pop culture zombies. Can't get away without talking about these guys a little bit. Nada says, the Bible says when we die, our soul immediately leaves the body. There's nobody home to come back alive. Well, exactly. That's why these Haitian ones, they're not actually dead. They're put into a comatose state where they register as dead, but they're not actually dead. All right, so pop zombie cultures. They arrived on the film scene around the same time as other monster peers, Frankenstein and Dracula, with a 1932 movie called White Zombie. But it wasn't until 1968 that zombies acquired a cult following of their own with the release of course, Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. Over the next 15 years, Romero directed 2 more zombie films, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. As special effects technology improved with each film, the zombies appeared more gruesome and realistic. So that was the real introduction, late 60s, early 70s. That's where your cult classic zombies started really coming in. Interesting fact from Captain Birdseye 4. The name zombie is only used once in the Romero films and Dawn of the Dead. Exactly. They didn't even call them zombies. I think they called them Revenant. If I remember correctly, they did not use the word zombie to describe them. For the 1980s on, dozens of films were made with zombies. Ghouls. Thank you, Captain Birdseye. They were called ghouls. Even Scooby-Doo battled zombies in the 1998 film Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. In the 2013 release of World War Z, starring Brad Pitt, brought zombie culture to a disturbing new level. That's where we went from slow, lumbering zombies to running, I'm going to catch you and destroy you zombies. Much more terrifying. And I remember this, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention agrees they took advantage of zombie mania and created a zombie preparedness website to motivate people to prepare for disasters and offer tips on how to survive a so-called zombie apocalypse and other catastrophes. The site was a huge hit. There was books out. It was fun. The idea was they were using the idea of a zombie just as an idea of any catastrophe, whether it would be nuclear fallout, whether it would be, the world destroyed by virus or EMP blackouts, technology down, whatever you wanted to do. They just used zombie as an overall term to get people to start thinking and preparing should society collapse, which is basically what it was. It was really fun. So zombies in nature. If you know anything about zombies, you know they're in nature. A little twisted, interesting play on words. Yeah, I thought so. Captain Birdseye 4, no mention of Resident Evil. Well, yeah, sure. Resident Evil, really kind of brought it to the video games. I could go through each type of pop culture thing where we got video games, television series with The Walking Dead. I just didn't feel that part was necessary. We all know zombies huge in pop culture. It's everywhere. Some people dig it, some people don't. All over video games, there was House of the Dead, where you used to be able to play in the arcade with the light guns. All different kinds of ones. Like I said, this wasn't as polished as I normally put it all together as in depth. Captain Birdseye, Resident Evil made zombies big again. It did. It kind of brought them back out again. Especially within gaming culture, it kind of lit the fuse, so to speak. All right, so this I pulled from Wikipedia. I'm okay with Wikipedia for some stuff, things like this, which is general information. I'm not going to say this word. It's a huge word for a fungus. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. I'm sure I butchered it. Commonly known as zombie ant fungus. Is an insect pathogenic fungus discovered by the British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace in 1859. I didn't realize it had been known for so long. Zombie ants infected by the fungus are predominantly found in tropical rainforests. If you look around on YouTube or other video sites, you can find videos of zombie ants and caterpillars and stuff that is infected by this fungus. The fungi thrive in warm, humid environments, which are ideal for their growth and reproduction. However, they can also be found in warm, temperate forest systems. The fungus primarily targets ants from the tribe Camponotini, including the carpenter ants. The infected hosts leave their canopy nests and foraging trails for the forest floor, an area with a temperature and humidity suitable for fungal growth. They then use their mandibles to attach themselves to a major vein on the underside of a leaf where the host ant remains after its eventual death. The process leading up to mortality takes 4 to 10 days from infection. and includes a reproductive stage where the fruiting bodies grow out from the ant's head, rupturing to release the fungus spores. O. unilateralis is in turn also susceptible to fungal infection itself, an occurrence which can limit its impact on ant populations, which has otherwise been known to devastate ant colonies. Captain Birdseye, crazy to think if that fungus mutates to infect humans, the apocalypse is on. You're right. That is one of the things, one of the scenarios that has been put forth as to if there was a zombie apocalypse, quote unquote, how could it actually happen? And this is one of those possible scenarios. I'm not going to say probable or likely because I don't believe it is. Possible scenarios. And I believe that there was a X-Files episode very, very similar where they were infected by some kind of fungus, a spore growth. And I don't know if it made them into zombies, but it made them basically psychotic, and they were attacking people and all that kind of fun stuff on the show. But yeah, that's definitely one of those things. And it's actually the main thing because obviously it would be an infection from the fungus. It could spread through the air. You could contaminate other people. Obviously, like in the movies, the rate of contamination and all this kind of stuff is not feasible with this method. But that is one of those things that they have said, if this fungus could attack humans in the same way, that could be a potential issue, which is why I believe they put in there that fungus, the zombie fungus, is also susceptible to its own fungal infection, which means they've already learned how to combat it, which I think is a really good idea. Really good idea. All right. So what are your guys' thoughts? What do you think about this whole zombie thing? Oh, slide out of order. I'm sorry, guys. So here's a picture of the ant with the fungus basically growing out the back of its head. This is what it does. And that spore explodes and then travels on from there. Now, one thing I didn't read into was you notice how it says the ant leaves the population and goes to a different area. I wonder why it does that, because wouldn't it be more likely for the fungus spore to find a host if it's in the colony? But it says it specifically leave, and I couldn't find any paperwork on that. Again, I didn't go as deep as I normally would do on some of this stuff. Been tired this week. Had a procedure done and all this kind of fun stuff. So, but what do you guys think? Zombies. Little twisted. I think I learned a lot that I didn't know about zombies. Wow, very interesting. Yeah. I've always known about the Haitian zombie connection. That's always been a thing for me. Just in the weird stuff that I've studied. Yeah, it's not like they're running around eating brains, not that kind of zombie. But the zombification is a real thing, and that's where the word actually comes from, is that culture. Captain Birdseye, I like my chances with the Romero zombies. Anything else, I'm screwed. I hear that, buddy. Yeah, if it's a flight or fight thing and I'm depending on flight, I'm in trouble. I can tell you that. Not going anywhere there. But I thought it was interesting. I didn't realize there was such a history with zombies. I thought that was kind of cool, the background on it. The idea that gravestones and things like that were thought to at least be to keep them from rising. I'm not sure if I go for that one. I'm still kind of the idea that it was to probably keep predators from getting into them, but who knows what they were thinking. That's how that works. We just kind of speculate. Obviously, the ones that were in the grave and pinned down, to me, that's a different story. That sounds to me like they were like, nope, we're not letting you get up and go anywhere. And you hear that a lot. You hear that with studying witches and witch lore. They do things to incapacitate a witch. They can't come back. Same thing with vampires. They do different things um, to incapacitate, vampires to keep them from doing, depending on what culture you're in. Captain Birdseye, here's a question for you. What's your zombie apocalypse plan? The plan is OPSEC. Operational security, which means I'm not telling you what my plan is. I have some various things. I have some skills that I can use. I'm not too worried about it. And frankly, I'm not worried because if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. It is what it is, whatever. Not too fussed about it. But in societal collapse, I'm not too fussed about it. Not too fussed about it. I know people. I have friends. I know where to go. So I'm not too worried. And best laid plans only work for about 5 minutes anyway. Then you have to change them and adapt and adjust. So you can only have ideas of what you want to do. You never know how it's going to go. Keeping your cards close, I see. Well, absolutely, man. You got to. Little twisted. So you think people were coming back from the dead or false dead? No, I do not believe outside of the miraculous that you can come back from the dead. As Nada said earlier, absent from the body, your soul is gone. It's not coming back to the body. The body starts decomposing, dying. The cells start destroying themselves pretty much immediately upon death. So I don't think, that's an issue there. I believe in miraculous resurrection. That's one thing, but that's not the same thing. So does this mean Jesus is technically a zombie? Not if you go back to our definition from the beginning of what zombie was. Let me see if I can go back here. Fastest way to do it. Willless and speechless human. When Jesus was supernaturally reanimated, he definitely wasn't willless or speechless. So that would definitely disqualify him from that. And if we go to the Britannica, it says an undead creature. No, where's the other one that we talked about? The idea that they came back specifically with the idea to hurt people. I forget which slide that's on, but that was also one of the defining characteristics. Was not only did they come back, they came back to cause harm. They were willless, they were soulless. So I would say that doesn't qualify. Nada says the only one who ever came back from dead legitimately was Jesus. I would have to correct you on that one because Lazarus did as well. According to the Bible, Jesus brought Lazarus back from the dead. So, just saying. Friendly zombie then. I mean, that kind of goes against the definition of zombie, but hey, if that's what you run with, I'm not going to say anything. That's your call. I've heard him called worse. But by definition, I would have to say no. All right, guys. Good discussion. I love it. Any other questions or anything, guys? Any other thoughts on zombies? Any requests for any shows coming up? I know I got some from Twisted. She's emailed me a couple. I'm going to be working on those. A little Twisted, great topic. Thanks, Twisted. I believe this was Brian Barber's request. I haven't seen Brian in a minute. I got to get up with him. I do have him on Facebook. I know he's had some health issues. I know Grizzly went to hang out with him for a little bit. I'm going to have to reach out to him and see if I can find him. It was either him or Standing Stones suggested the last two topics. I know you want me to talk about the skulls of Peru. This is going to be a big one. Nada said, yeah, but Jesus stayed alive and Lazarus didn't. That is true. That is very true. Captain Birdseye, why do you think zombies are more popular than vampires or werewolves? Because zombies in our current pulp culture, a zombie is your dad, your mom, your neighbor, your friend, your sister, your significant other. Um, it's more relatable. It's people you love, and it spreads, right? So you have werewolfism, but werewolfism doesn't spread. I don't know if that's a word. Sounds good. Through a community in a night. Where if you look at the zombie movies and zombie lore, it's like once one hits, it spreads exponentially. And so it affects people and they're still recognizable as the people just they're just not, right? So a lot of the movies, what am I thinking of? Zombieland, where it was kind of like, it was the mom, it was the sister, it was the girlfriend, they were zombies. They just turned into, cannibals. So I think that's why they're more popular as far as that goes. But I would even have to dispute if they actually are more popular. I would say more popular with a specific group or niche. I don't necessarily think they're more popular. Um, I think they make for better monsters that we can attack and kill because they don't necessarily have supernatural powers until you get into the World War Z type. But the idea with the zombie is a monster that we can handle as your average human. You can grab a machete, you can grab your baseball bat, you can grab whatever and take out zombies, and so I think it's kind of more relatable that way as well. Captain Birdseye, there's definitely a ton more zombie films than either vampires or werewolves. Maybe. I'd have to look into that, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're more popular. It means Hollywood tried to make them more popular. But I have yet to see any real zombie movie on the level of the Underworld series or on the level of, I hate to say it, guys, forgive me, the Twilight Saga. You get, the last big great series of them was George Romero. So, but I think that's why I think they're the monsters that average people can kill, as portrayed in Zombieland. So I think that would make it more relatable to the average Joe. Good question, though. Good comments. I haven't seen you around before, Captain Birdseye. You got to keep coming, buddy. Normally, my show is 10 p.m. Eastern, Thursday nights. Every now and then, we monkey with the schedule to accommodate guests for doing interviews and stuff. And when I am doing that, I try and let you guys know as far ahead of time as I can. I'm working with a special guest coming up. I'm not going to say his name, but I'm excited. He's a good friend of mine. He worked on a very, very popular podcast and website. He had to leave due to some personal issues, but he is getting back in the saddle. He is starting his own again. He's pitching some ideas to specific producers to kind of go big name. Great guy. Can't wait to have him on. I have a lady I know, a friend of Jennifer's and mine. I don't know if Jennifer's still watching. Her name's Carol. She grew up in Vermont and has multiple experiences. I believe with Bigfoot on her property, maybe some other things. Wonderful, sweet, dear lady. I think she'd tell a great story for us and give us her events. She was at Mama J's funeral and just absolutely wonderful. We reconnected again. Got those two working on getting scheduled up. We've got the Peru Skulls. I know Little Twisted want me to go over. There's another one or two I haven't gotten into yet, so I can't remember exactly what it is that you sent me. So we got some good stuff coming up. Hopefully I can start feeling better. I can get a little bit more research done this week. Like I said, I've just been really tired. That always kind of makes it harder to get stuff done. So anything else, guys? Any other comments, questions, concerns, criticisms? Tell me I'm horrible. I don't mind. I won't believe you anyway. All right. Nothing else coming through. Then I will see you guys next week. Same channel. Same time, hopefully. Little twisted, no hurry. Health first. Yeah, I know, but I also know that you guys like my shows and I like putting them on. So, Captain Birdseye, love the beard. Thank you, sir. I'm very proud of it myself. Worked hard on it. Keep it up well. Don't know who this guy is, so we're going to ignore him. I'm not sure how to boot him out. That's all right. Don't forget, guys, hit that like button. Please subscribe to our channel if you're not subscribed. Come and check it out. As Grizzly would say, guys, from coast to coast and around the world. We will see you guys next week. We will leave you today with our usual chuckle. And hope you all have a fantastic week.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No. We're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!